This is a meeting of the Engineering and Equipment Committee of the Vallecitos Water District for Monday, April 19th, 2021 at 3 p.m. via teleconference. And I will dispense with reading this since we don't have any public. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand over the agenda to you, Glenn.
All right, so it's a pretty full agenda. We have 7 items on there, and I trust that the directors received the agenda in advance.
Yep.
We're going to start out with the San Alejo Hills and land outfall condition assessment, and I think, is Susan going to take that then?
Yep.
All right, Susan, the floor is yours.
Let me go ahead and share the figures here. Okay, can everybody see the figures?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
Susan, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, General Manager Prum and directors. I wanted to give you a quick update on where we are on our 2 condition assessments, pipeline condition assessments that are going to be happening this May. The first diagram we see up here is for San Alejo Hills, and this will be for the ductile iron pipeline condition assessment that we've shared with you. What we will be doing are 3 different assessment methodologies. We're going to start with, excuse me, we're going to be starting with doing a soil resistivity testing. And then we're going to be doing potholing in a few select areas to get a better understanding of the soil conditions. And then we'll be following that up with 2 full weeks of leak detection throughout the 25-mile area here in San Alejo Hills. We are on schedule, although there is a chance that we'll push this out maybe about 2 weeks. So we're still looking at May to begin this effort, but it may not conclude until mid-June. We're continuing to get some of the permits that are needed for that potholing. And also we will be doing a pretty thorough community outreach to make sure that the public is aware of the work that we're doing out there. And with that, we'll be tomorrow night holding a brief community outreach effort at the Homeowners Association for San Alejo Hills. The meeting is scheduled to begin at 6 o'clock. We'll have about 5 to 10 minutes to briefly explain to them what the activities are, who the contractors are that will be out there, but primarily just to make them aware that this is happening, give them a little bit of the background on the reason for this. Of course, as you know, due to the failures that we've seen, many of them are caused by human interactions with dry utilities. But again, we want to be able to understand what the condition of those pipes are. So tomorrow we'll be getting in front of the Homeowners Association. But we're going to be following that up with more in-depth overview of the activities. We were only able to get about 5 minutes on their agenda. And so we want to make sure that we give people time to ask questions and understand what's occurring. So we will be scheduling a couple of our own Zoom meetings to follow up. The first one is scheduled for April 27th at 6 p.m. Again, it's via Zoom, and we'll be making them aware of that tomorrow. And then we'll schedule another Zoom meeting or more than one if necessary as we get closer to the activities, particularly the leak detection, because the leak detection will require some shutdowns, short duration, maybe 2 hours. At a time in the different neighborhood locations, but we want to make sure everyone understands what we're doing out there. I do believe that a couple of the other directors will be joining us tomorrow evening as well for that outreach, and they may well join us for the follow-on meetings as well. Are there any questions on this ductile iron effort?
Those meetings are going to be in person?
No, everything is
Virtual.
Zoom. Yes, everything's virtual.
Okay.
Susan, maybe 2 things you can add. So is the leak assessment or leak testing on all of the pipes in this area, everything that's shown here?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, it's a thorough leak detection of the entire 25-mile area, approximately 25 miles that are in this area.
Okay, and then when they do these relatively short duration shutdowns, what kind of impacts do we expect for the residents? Like time of day? What, I assume we'll shut off their connection for the duration of the test.
That's correct. We will be proactively shutting it off so that there's no unanticipated shutoffs for the consumers. And based on the contractor's input, it looks like it's going to only be about 2 hours for any given area. Over that 2-week period, it is during the day. And we will have a schedule laid out in advance and in preparation for those other Zoom meetings. So it won't be just a 1-day notice. We'll give them a window where we anticipate being in their neighborhood so that they can plan appropriately.
Thank
Just
you.
to kind of add to that, this is really a multifaceted or multi-step process. So we're hoping to get good information, which will help pinpoint us to use a kind of a more expensive tool in a more narrow range. So, for example, we're looking at using Pika tool to put inside the pipe to look at wall thickness and different areas of degradation that may be suspect. So we're hoping between these 3 different tests, between the potholing, the soil corrosivity, and of course the leak detection, it can help narrow the focus on where we actually spend the more expensive Pico tool money. So this way, because doing a Pico tool over the 25 miles would be extremely expensive. So we're trying to basically use the money wisely.
A question.
Yes.
Susan, how do we do leak detection on various sections and ultimately the whole dang 25 miles?
Right. They have the listening devices, which they're able to distinguish what's the regular flow and what's leak flow. And it's 2 weeks, so it's 10 full days. So on average, they're going to be doing about 2.5 miles a day. So I think that they've done this in our district previously. They did a small area in the northern part of the district. Well, maybe not last year, it may have been the year before. So their experience with our district, and we had a very good experience with this contractor in that area and have very good reviews. And in fact, they've done the entire service area for City of Oceanside and also received excellent feedback from Oceanside on their work. So we have confidence in their technology and that it'll be able to provide us some very good information as we go forward with the follow-on technologies.
Okay.
And district staff will be out there, our inspection staff will be out there working with them and also as a main face for customer interaction. So, when somebody's water is being turned off, they're not going to recognize the name on the shirt, but we'll have an inspector with a VWD vehicle and of course a proper VWD uniform on. So if there's any questions or concerns, that we have representation out there.
All right.
Yeah, and the limitation of this technology is that it won't tell you if something's close to leaking. It'll only pick up something if it's actually started leaking. So if something's got 1 millimeter of wall thickness left and hasn't started leaking, we won't pick up on that. But particularly with ductile iron pipe, you start to spring small leaks before you get these main breaks. So hopefully this will identify problem areas well in advance of them becoming big problems.
Yeah, I have a question. What's shown on this diagram here, the 25 miles, is that pretty much everything in San Alejo Hills?
Yes.
And so how much ductile iron pipe do we have outside of San Alejo Hills?
Do we,
We
Susan,
have about I believe we have about 100 miles total,
Okay,
or approximately 100 miles.
and about 25 in San Alejo.
25%.
Okay.
all right, Susan, the next one.
Yes, so this is the land outfall condition assessment. Again, this is the pipeline that conveys the wastewater to Encina from our lift station 1 and the solids that are produced from MRF. And this condition assessment is also going to be scheduled towards the end of May. It's also about 2 weeks duration. This is a project, this condition assessment is utilizing CCTV and sonar technologies to take a look and determine the condition inside this primarily steel pipe. There are different materials throughout, and there's some lined areas, et cetera, which will be documenting then the different materials and their condition. This is a joint effort with Vista, Buenos Sanitation District, and with the city of Carlsbad. All of the participating agencies and affected agencies, including Encina, have fully participated in the design of this condition assessment. They're well aware of what's happening with that the condition assessment and the effect that it may have, say, for example, on Encina, et cetera. So we are in good shape to do this condition assessment towards the end of May. This will be done at night to minimize take advantage of the lower flows at night for the wastewater. The CCTV technology really needs to have the low flow. We do have 3 siphons in the area in the pipeline alignment that will be inspected by the sonar technology. And we have begun outreach on this one as well in coordination with Carlsbad. So our Chris Robbins and the City of Carlsbad public outreach folks are working together. I believe all this pipeline is in Carlsbad. So we are reaching out to those folks that will be affected. For example, there is a Motel 6 just on the edge of Interstate 5. And as I mentioned, this will be night work. So we are very cognizant of how that may impact them. We wouldn't expect to be in their area for more than 1 night, possibly 2. But we are already beginning discussions with them to make them aware of our activities. We have got a signed off inspection work plan from Vista, and we expect that signed inspection plan from Carlsbad this week as well. Another aspect of this condition assessment is, again, because it is funded by 3 agencies, we are completing a letter agreement that's just based upon our 1985 agreement regarding this pipeline. So we're working on a letter agreement with the other 2 agencies for purposes of cost sharing and an understanding of the work that's to be done. Our consultant is obtaining all of the traffic permits. We will be on Palomar Airport Road for a significant portion of this. And so we are getting the traffic permits for that area. And again, this is middle of the night work, so hopefully there won't be too much of an impact to the regular flow of traffic. But we are working with Carlsbad, the city of Carlsbad, on getting those in place. So those are the primary points on that one. Again, it is all night work, so we will have night work here and day work in San Elijo Hills to complete all these condition assessments, and we're ready and prepared for that.
And this is a circa 1980s pipeline. It's never been videoed or assessed as in its entire. Sections have been small sections, especially down closer to Iwa and the freeway crossing. But from El Camino Real almost all the way down to the 5 freeway, there really hasn't been a camera put down with the intent to assess it. So I'm both very excited and very nervous about this one because a big portion of this pipeline is ductile iron and is is not full gravity. It's gravity, so it's got that air vapor area, which I'm praying that we have a roof on this pipe. So.
Susan, is there going to be any excavation or construction of access points, or are we taking advantage of existing manholes for all of the condition assessment?
It's strictly existing manholes, and the inspection plan is avoiding manholes that would cause, even more traffic impact. So we're trying to be going through the manholes that are a bit easier, or also there's manholes that are in sensitive environmental areas, and we are working around those as well. But no, there's absolutely no construction occurring with this.
Thank you.
And unless there's any questions, that's the first item on the agenda.
Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
I guess we're good. Thank
All
you.
right, so item
Thank
two is, thank you, Susan. Item 2 is a Meadowlark Reclamation Facility project overview. We have quite a few projects teed up and ready to go under construction at Meadowlark, and it'll be a bit of a juggling act. And some of you may be aware that EWA does this all the time. They have multiple contractors on the Encino Water Pollution Control Facility site, and now it's our turn to have to juggle the contractors. And I think Ryan's going to lead us in this discussion.
Indeed. Thank you, General Manager Pruitt. This item and the next item are interrelated. And for educational purposes, I just kind of want to walk the committee members through what Meadowlark does look like on the CIP level over the next few years. I'll begin at the furthest upstream point at the Headworks building there. Augers are being replaced as part of the Headworks Auger Improvements Project, along with some other custom fabrications inside the 2 existing channels and some electrical improvements, primarily with 2 new local control panels for those augers. Flowing down to the aeration basins improvements project, which also includes the biological selector. This project has been awarded and is in construction right now, primarily submittal review stages. Both this one and the Headworks project are in the submittal review periods where we're going to be getting the bulk of the equipment procured on the project and on order. So those 2 projects are ramping up. Contractors not on site yet, but that will change in the coming months. Working our way down to the tertiary, we have the tertiary structural and rehabilitation improvements. It's really a coatings project for the existing tertiary basins. The coatings are failing, so we're going to have on-site not just contractors, but third-party inspections to inspect those coatings and to ultimately accept it. And then working our way down, it's become, well, I'll start with the odor scrubber number 1 replacement. It's one of the smaller projects that we have. In total, it should only take maybe 2 weeks of construction once all the items are on site. We are handling this one. It's not going out to bid. But we've been working with ops and equipment vendors to move forward on this project. It's basically at the same stages as the Headworks, to where equipment is on order, and once we receive that, the contractor will be mobilizing on site. Just so happens that the contractor for odor scrubber 1 replacement is the same contractor for the Headworks project. The conversion to sodium hypochlorite in the existing chlorine building is a ops priority project. It's really a safety hazard on site with the chlorine gas. We will be converting this to a bulk storage and injection of bleach, sodium hypochlorite. And this project has been in the works now for several years in the budget. And we are pushing it forward, hoping to get the RFP out, open RFP out to design consultants by the end of this current fiscal year, so that we will actually be in design phases as early as the beginning of this coming fiscal year 21-22. Additionally, the chlorine contact tank expansion has surfaced in the form of grant funding opportunities the district may have. If and when the district is awarded these grant funds, there will be a timeline associated with the improvements to be finished by the end of the 22-23 fiscal year. And that has basically that grant funding opportunity has prioritized this contact tank expansion project, assuming we do get the funding. So this really I just wanted to convey the different projects at Meadowlark over the next 3 years that are coming up. Many of them are in various phases of planning, design, and construction. I don't know if James, if you want to go to the schedule, the Gantt chart, I could
Sure.
visually show that schedule.
Let me zoom up on it a little bit.
So the projects I just covered, in addition, I have here various Meadowlark O&M CIP project requests, just because various needs happen every year, and there seems to always be at least one additional CIP project that will pop up on any given budget cycle. So that's just kind of a placeholder, but this really lays out the schedule of construction, design, and planning of all the projects we just discussed. And as you can see, I mean, it's a healthy workload for any person over the next 2 years minimum, you know, and if things do get delayed or slow down to some degree or some factor slows down the project, it could really be extended out to a potential of, like, you know, total 3 years.
Really quick, just to explain this chart, the green bars, that's projects in the planning stage. The I guess, is it the blue is design, and then this orange color, at least it's orange on my screen, is construction. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the gray is just basically the bid phase.
Okay, and the gray is the bid phase. So
Correct.
you can kind of see how the projects are lining up, and we've kind of gone from I guess the second item. If there's any questions on that item, we're kind of starting to talk about the third item, which is related, which is getting some project management help. But I don't want to jump into that until the committee members have had a chance on any of the actual project items on, you know, just in general, what's going on in Meadowlark.
And the committee can well imagine if we get different contractors for each of these projects, which may or may not happen, there could be a lot of logistics problems, just access to the site, equipment deliveries, lay down in staging areas, construction, a lot of workers on a site. EWA ran into quite a few problems in the pandemic with a number of people on the site, and hopefully we don't have to deal with that issue as things go forward. But it is going to take a keen eye and attention to detail to coordinate all these projects. So
Yeah, it's a small, really tight site.
Yeah,
it
small.
is.
Yeah. With that, if there's no questions on this, I guess we've kind of segued into it anyway. We can
James,
go
I
to
got a couple quick questions on a couple of the projects. The odor scrubber replacement, is that what type of odor scrubber is that? Is it like activated carbon or something?
it's sodium hydroxide, isn't it? It's a caustic. Is that correct?
It's a biological scrubber, biological odor scrubber. It's from IMS, Integrity Municipal Systems. They're a local provider out of Poway. Worked with IMS on other projects when I wasn't at the district, on the private side, designing primarily for Buena Sanitation District. They use they're called iBox scrubbers, and it's a biological odor scrubber. They're very O&M friendly. They require very little maintenance as opposed to other types of scrubbers.
Does it
Right.
have a media that needs to be changed out occasionally, or?
It does. It has a biological media that they actually have to kind of keep it wet. They have to keep the bugs alive in the biological media. And it does need maintenance. It just needs it on a much more infrequent basis than
Gotcha.
other forms. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ryan, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, the media replacements on these things, I know from experience, get really expensive if it's like activated carbon or I think potassium permanganate used to be used in these things.
Correct. I believe typical scrubbers media is changed out on the order of once every 2 to 3 months, where this one is typically like once a year.
And so does this, what's the one it's replacing? What kind of scrubber is that?
Oh,
That's
I believe that's a carbon scrubber, and
Okay.
it's very old and it's very inefficient. They
Yeah.
actually performed an odor study on the scrubber, to which DHK or Don King Engineering performed, and analyzed, which led us down this road. It started off as an ops project and kind of migrated its way over into CIP.
Gotcha. I had a question on the conversion of the disinfection to sodium hypochlorite. I assume that's being done for safety reasons for the surrounding neighborhood. Is that true?
I believe that, and also staff and personnel on site. It's the biggest hazard on site that the visitors have to get educated on when they come on site, is that we do have chlorine gas as a hazard.
It seems to me like we used to have to file something with, I think it was with county hazmat maybe, or health department or somebody. We used to have to do like a hazard analysis, like a what if there was a leak from the chlorine gas and where it would go and how much area it would affect. Is that something we do at this site?
Yeah, we still do a plume analysis for this site through the hazmat process. It's done through operations. It's the same plume analysis because it hasn't changed. But we had the last one we had to do where we actually had to put some effort into is when they built all the houses, because that changed the potential affected amount of people within the plume.
So with this conversion project, does that eliminate doing any of that?
Yes.
That's the only off-site hazard that we have.
Yes, I mean, we obviously have chemical hazards on site, and like our odor scrubber one uses sodium hydroxide, which is very caustic. But the biggest threat that could go off site is this chlorine gas.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks. Director Hernandez, any questions?
Nope, I'm good here.
So that leads us to our next item. And Ryan, since you've already started talking about it, you can, I guess, go back to the Gantt chart or the recommendations.
I won't go into all the background of the treatment plant. I know everyone knows its history, but basically in planning these projects and going through the current year's budget cycle, became a little more obvious to staff of the needs out there in Meadowlark for managing these projects at different phases. And we really determined that there's enough work out at Meadowlark to keep one person busy most of the time. I won't say full time, but the majority of time, over 20 hours a week, over the next 2-3 years. And this has a couple impacts on our group locally, internally. It's a workload dedication to Meadowlark that takes away from other infrastructure CIP projects that are also priorities to the district. And we have the ability to work with our as needed civil engineering consultants to basically set up a proposal for staff extension of project management, to where they would be managing the projects under myself and Lito Santos, who's also on the meeting, where we would still maintain control as project manager, but they would be acting as the day-to-day boots on the ground, so to speak, coordinating phone calls, emails, communications with design engineers, contractors, staff, not just CIP staff, but also Meadowlark staff, become a very familiar face on site and strictly be dedicated to the Meadowlark workload. And if that was the case, we feel like we can make ourselves more efficient around the other needs that the district has. So we talked with Black and Veatch because we're familiar with their process experience at treatment plants and also their abilities to project manage similar civil engineering projects such as these. And we determined that funding using the current fiscal year funding directly through the individual project budgets at the Meadowlark plant for all the different projects can be utilized using our on-call services consultant, Black and Veatch, through a task order. Each fiscal year, which we approve, would allocate funds accordingly within the CIP for those staff extension services. And this proposal only proposes that first phase or the first year, which would extend from May this year through the end of fiscal year 21-22 for authorization. So it's a not to exceed amount of $149,556. And beyond that, we would consider how it's going, if we want to continue, if there's benefits there, and then we would bring back additional authorizations that go above and beyond that, either 1 year or that $149,000 level. But we're looking at it as a contract mechanism to where we could consider 2 or 3 years of staff extension with this approach. So today's conversation is really just to educate the Engineering and Equipment Committee, to seek the blessing of the committee, and if that's the case, then we would take this to the first meeting in May to the board of directors, seeking to authorize the general manager to execute task order 1 with Black and Veatch.
Hey, Ryan, I hate to put you on the spot, but I know these numbers seem kind of big when you look at the 3 years, could be close to $500,000. But what is the total construction cost of all the combined projects that the PM would be looking after? And can we put it in terms of some kind of percentage that we're looking to spend over that course of that of the construction?
We certainly can. We know what we know today. The biggest project coming down the pipeline is the conversion to sodium hypochlorite. That has potential to, be on the order of magnitude of, say, $5 million construction contract, or just shy of. I'm probably going too high there. It's probably in the range of about $2 million. But there is a lot of piping and things associated with it. The bioselector was about 850. So if I had to put a total sum on all the projects, it would probably be in the range of $3.5 to $5 million total.
Let me add a little bit to that. Because I did the grant application for CCT. The CCT is a $4.5 million to $4.7 million job just by itself. So, and then you probably have another 2.5 to actually more like $3.5 million on top of that. So you're looking at between 8 and 9 million, everything, but probably closer to $8 million in total CIP costs. But that includes design, planning, and everything. So construction value of that is probably more along 75% of it or so.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
So, and this, the way we've done it is we've kind of rolled in the cost of this consultant, and there's offsetting costs. So there'll be less staff time spent, but the consultant time is a little bit more expensive than staff time. At the end of the day, consultant with their overhead and their profit margin comes in a little bit higher than staff with our overhead. But there is some offset. So the majority of this time will be the consultant time on the job, with minimal time for the capital group, which just consists of Ryan and Lito at this time, just overseeing and just managing and helping remove roadblocks and answer questions.
Yeah, and it'll certainly free up our staff to continue to work on projects not on the Meadowlark site. So.
Mm-hmm.
Question. Well, that's, that based at $150,000 a year, that's only like, if it's a full day's work and, 2,000 hours, that's only, $75 an hour, and our staff time is 3 times that.
It's only about 20 hours a week to more. There'll be some certain
Oh.
weeks that are full-time, but it's not full-time staff. So if it's full-time for the whole time, it'd be much higher, but it's going to vary. So there'll be periods of time where there'll be almost no time spent in between. And that's the beauty of the staff extension, that we're not paying this individual to do nothing.
Right.
And then there'll be times where it'll be 40 hours a week, but it's averaging close to 20 hours a week.
Well, that's okay, $150 an hour. That's still economically better than what we are getting from staff time. That's, we're well above that.
Yeah, but this doesn't eliminate all staff time. The staff extension services cannot make those decisions. They still are going to need guidance. But it does cut into a lot of the lower to mid-level staff needs of the day-to-day project management. That's the beauty of it. So it takes a lot of time off the books from our staff so we can work on a lot of the other projects, because we have too many CIPs that are going on at the same time. Even if we were to ramp a lot of them back, the workload that's necessary with the priorities, we just don't have the staffing to do it.
Okay, well, as I say, I think although some of our lower staff times are more economical, senior staff times are more expensive than the $150.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think this is, it's only 3%. If it's $2 million, it's only 3% of the whole budget. So that's very good.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get out there. It's a big numbers, but it's compared to a much bigger number. So it's percentage-wise, it's not that high.
Yeah, no, I mean, 3%, if you can get construction management for 3%, you're doing very good.
And just to be clear, this will be more project management. So when we get into construction management, there'll still be inspection or construction manager out there on top of that. This is more of the office management person that coordinates a job, like a program management.
All right.
So
James, is the construction management portion of it, is that through Black and Veatch as well, or would that be staff?
Yeah, a lot of it will be done through our in-house inspections, but there'll be certain specialties that we'll have to probably go out and get outside construction management, and each one will be brought to the board individually because there'll be over 50,000 anyway.
Okay. Well, I certainly support it. I think it's a great idea, and it, like you said, it frees up staff for the other ongoing projects we have. And approving it year by year, I think is a good idea. We'll see how it goes the first year and go from there.
There'll be a learning curve this year, and hopefully if it works out well, the idea is we'll be even more efficient. Even if the contract amount's the same, more work can be done next year, because this first year there'll be a big learning curve for this individual, which will take our staff time to train them. So.
All right. If there's no other questions, I guess we're good. Thank you.
Just to clarify, then it's okay to say that the committee supports the staff. Committee supports staff to bring this forward to the board for approval.
Yeah,
I think so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next item. I believe it's called the VID VWD. VWD VID annexation area discussion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Go ahead, James.
Yep. So this is an area next to the VID flume, and VID's been trying to get these customers. And when I say these customers, they're the 1, 2, 3, 4 customers off the flume. They have other customers they want to go off the flume, but kind of each ones are in different pockets. Between the two agencies, we call this, Area 3 or Area 5, but that's really not that important. The big deal is these are VID customers, and VID has approached Vallecitos and said, hey, if we pay for the annexation fees and pay for the VWD, the district capital facility fees, would you guys be willing to give these 4 different ratepayers in VID and move them over into Vallecitos. So we went through the basically the math and went through the figures, and it looks fair. So it gets them off the flume. The customers actually receive better water pressure, more consistent pressure. For VID, the advantage is this: they're trying to get every direct customer off the flume. It gives them more options to pressurize the flume in the future and make it more of a transmission main, and also gain more capacity in it. A lot of the capacity is limited by the way the plumbing is actually situated. It's been an ongoing thing, and if you've ever read any of their master plans, it's been in at least the last 4 master plans to do something with the flume and get the existing direct connections off of it. So in this case, and just to kind of jump back up, they'd be paying Vallecitos. VID would be paying Vallecitos about $32,000 in annexation fees and about $43,600 in capacity fees. The water authority capacity fees have already been paid, so that wouldn't be necessary to basically take over these 4 properties. VID would take the lead on the annexation and also take the lead with the customers. So today we're just having more of a discussion. Discussion to bring this to committee, and then in the future it'd be a board request. So it's really, is there any concerns from a staff standpoint? It looks like a pretty good deal. It's in the area within LAFCO and within our master plan to annex into Vallecitos anyway. So it's always been our plan. And this is just kind of an organized step moving towards that for one, I'll call it a pod of areas. So with that, it's fairly straightforward. At the end of the day, this is actually a road, Calle Maria. That's why the staff report's called Calle Maria. I know it doesn't show on this. It's a paper road and access to these properties. There's an easement that goes up here, which would be a temporary offsite agreement for this customer. And there's an existing easement that goes up to here, which would service these 3 customers. So they'd really be a temporary offsite that would probably last for maybe perpetuity. Who knows? Unless a road gets blown through here or something like that. This remainder lot is undeveloped. So it's to remain undeveloped. And when they come in, they'd probably come in normally, and VID would push them to Vallecitos, and they'd follow the normal annexation and conditioning process, because this lot is proposed to be a county minor subdivision, 3 lots plus a remainder piece in the future, with probably 3 homes, and I don't know what the remainder would be, but probably 3 homes on it. With that, staff's looking for support to bring this to the board in this organized fashion, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, James, where's the flume? Is it along the top of these?
Yeah, the flume is actually, and this is actually just so you get your bearings. This is our Emerald Heights neighborhood is right above here. This is Richland 1 and Richland 2 tanks.
Right.
And the flume, it follows this exact line right here along the back of the property lines.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'll tell you, I wholeheartedly support this, and I'm glad to see it. I was about to ask about this area since I hadn't heard anything in a long time. It's really good news to see some movement on it. So I fully support it, and I'll defer to Director Hernandez.
No, I think it makes actually good sense, and we've been thinking about this for the whole time I've been on the board. This whole upper area.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, James, I may have missed it, but who pays for the actual connections themselves?
VID, it's in the staff report. VID will be paying and actually constructing the laterals.
Okay.
So basically, all of our meters would sit here at the end along, and this blue line's our existing water pipeline. So this is the district property. And VID, they have their own, obviously, it's not shown on our plans. And then there'd be a bank of, 4 meters here, and then their offside laterals would go to each property.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Unless there's any other questions, I'll move on to the next item.
Yeah, one quick last question. As far as you said, this might stay this way in perpetuity. Is there any kind of future planning that we're doing for future capital facilities to serve this holistically, or is it just going to be kind of property by property?
So it's kind of property by property. We've talked to VID about doing a global annexation study, which we get a consultant that we both agree to and split the cost of seeing what it would take to kind of organize, become more efficient. They have pipelines in the ground. Some are good, some are not good by their own emission because they're circa 1930s pipeline, 1940s pipelines. And so we're kind of looking at that. But if you look at this area, there's no real place for a road to blow through because it doesn't show it well here. But this is upslope going up the hill to Emerald Heights community. So it's a fairly steep slope. It's kind of open space. And the only road that's going to go through is maybe Calle Maria down on the bottom here. And that in itself, because of the rural nature of the area, it's going to be fairly challenging. So when I said this is probably permanent, we do have provisions to make it a permanent offsite, but we usually don't do that. But in other areas, we're looking at looping the systems through to kind of have more of an organized planning order so we don't have double pipes and double features in the ground.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and Director Ellithorpe, further to your point, the scope is so big, and we've talked with VID, and if you start looking at completing all the annexations in the areas that seem to make sense, when you look at the annexation fees, the cap fees, the improvements to the infrastructure that's required, it's a huge number.
Yeah, I
think
think
that's one of the hurdles that we've had moving forward is it's going to be hard for VID to swallow the number that we're going to throw out there.
I think that's why it's been so hard historically to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that's why we've always kind of done it as needed as some trigger happens, usually a minor subdivision or some type of a failure in the system. So.
Yeah, but I think each time we tackle one of these, it makes the rest easier to manage. So I think that'll be good. We'll continue to look at it as we add these. It subtracts from the remainder, and maybe at some point in time, it makes sense to sit down and try to just resolve it once and for all.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So the next one, Ladybug Lane. So these discussions actually kind of get more difficult. The VID one was very easy. With temporary offsite. So the next two, starting with this one here, the issues become a little bit more complex. So in this case, we have two main things going on. We have this lot here, which I'll just call APN 2000. They're building a new home. There's an existing 750 square foot home on site, and they're building a 3,000 square foot home, and they're calling the 750 square foot home their auxiliary dwelling unit, under the state and county provisions to build auxiliary dwelling units without additional fees. However, they're actually building the 3,000 square foot home, and they're on a existing temporary offsite agreement. This is Twin Oaks, and obviously our 40 million gallon tank is north. This is around the bend. Deer Springs is just off the page here. So this is kind of in the beginning of Twin Oaks, where it splits from Deer Springs. Within the temporary offsite agreement, if they build a new home, it's stated in there that their temporary will no longer be valid, and they'll have to do a water line extension to their property. The problem with that is this other property, which we'll call APN 2100, their temporary agreement says that if a new line is being extended at all, they have to participate in and actually get the new and actually extend that new line for their service. So this guy will be conditioned to extend his new water line all the way to the edge of his property, and in this 2100 will be conditioned to participate. Now, this is a 1979 temporary agreement. So there's a good chance that these owners know nothing about this. And so this is more of a conceptual discussion with the committee and possibly with the board in the near future of how we're going to handle these, because these are coming up, and the next one is similar. It's got some issues, but as you can see, the existing water line on Ladybug Lane stops here, and the way the existing temporaries are set, these two properties get triggered. This property and this property that I have my cursor on does not, because of the way the easements are and their frontage to the easement. Basically, the easement goes right to the end, and they have frontage right on the easement, so they technically don't get triggered. We've approached these things in several different ways. If we go by standard policy and our ordinances, we basically tell this property owner who's building a 3,000 square foot home, you need to extend the water main, which he's unaware of at this point. And then we contact this property and say, we're calling in your temporary, because your temporary agreement says from 1979 says that if a water main gets extended, you need to participate and connect up. That is what our ordinances and policies say. It's very black and white, clear cut. From there, the reaction typically is, we don't have the money for that. We don't want to do it. Why do we have to do it? And so right now, the staff isn't bringing this to the committee for any type of action because we're not there yet. We're very early in the process with these with this homeowner building process. The county has issued us some notification that they're going forward, and the county wants some condition assurances that water is available and that also what the conditions that this homeowner would be subject to for their 3,000 square foot home. We haven't responded to the county at this point. We wanted to start the conversation at committee level and see where it goes from there. So with that, it's an open discussion with the committee on this particular subject. As you can see, we will probably have two very upset property owners at minimum here. The district has done this in the past, and we've, staff and sometimes the board has taken its bruises, but it is kind of our policy and it's the standard way to do it. And we've done that in the past before. We've also missed it. There's been, not recently, but in the past history, there's been line extensions that have not been enforced, even when a pipeline had been put through because nobody looked up the temporaries. Our systems now with modernization and technology, when something happens, our GIS points us out. So we no longer miss these, but in the 90s and early 2000s, they were often missed. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions and participate in any discussion that the committee may have.
Yeah, and I think it raises those two issues, and one of them obviously does the issue of the ADU, the additional auxiliary dwelling unit. Does that pass muster? And I don't think it does. I think when you have an existing 750 square foot facility or building and you want to build 3,000 square feet, you're not building an ADU. You're building a new home. They may be able to get credit for the existing 750 as an ADU for other purposes, but not for our purposes. And that's the primary issue. The secondary issue is this, for lack of a better term, the innocent victim to the south there, where they've done nothing other than have possession of an agreement that's 40 something years old that's going to be triggered by no action of their own. So it's a difficult issue. And James, I don't know if you have any clue how many of these types of agreements we have in place.
So we have a process in place, and we just haven't had the staff to start actively looking for these and kind of compiling the issues. We can look up the temporaries. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but most of them are still valid. In other words, there's no pipeline extension or something that's triggered, but we do have a handful. And when I say handful, I don't mean 5 or it could be a dozen, it could be 2,000. I don't have a good feel for the number where a pipeline has been extended, but nobody hooked the existing customer up that's on a temporary. So they're still on a temporary, even though they have frontage. So those are the issues that are going to be coming up in the next several years as we kind of go through our system and identify this. And then at the end of the day, it's going to be kind of a board discussion of what do we want to do with these customers that are kind of sitting idly. They're unaware, obviously, and understandably so. So that'll be a kind of a discussion that we have. This one, it's early. We haven't, the pipeline has not been extended. The person building a 3,000 square foot home, it's very normal to condition them on this stuff. And then we have the kind of the innocent bystander on the south that technically their agreement gets triggered.
The line extension agreement, I assume that's recorded with each property that's affected.
Yes. Yeah, so it is on title and recorded. So there's no ignorance is bliss type rule that they could point to, because it is part of their title.
Yeah, that southerly parcel, I might call him a victim, but I wouldn't say he's innocent victim. If it's recorded with the property, it is what it is.
Yeah, so they've all been given constructive notice. They should know what's going on, and they've reaped the benefits. They got something years ago, and it may have been a prior owner, but the property received benefits for over 40 years.
Sure.
And the agreement they signed, it's time to pay the piper. But these are difficult issues when you reach out to these homeowners and, without knowing their backstory, I don't know what their ability would be to pay. Everyone's story is a little bit different, but I think staff's just looking for a little direction on this.
Well, give me some idea of the lengths that we're talking about here, James. Presently, the 18, what's the last, the north is the top property. I don't know if that's north or east, whatever.
Yeah, north is up.
Yeah,
So this
north.
2,000.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently that property and the south property are on a temporary water hookup that goes out to the existing water line. Is that right?
Yes, right there. If you see
Right.
the transition between the blue and the red. So
Yeah.
I don't have the exact feet, but I think it's almost 200 feet to his property line, and then his property line looks a little longer than 200 feet to get across.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's so that's 400 feet.
Of 8-inch main extension. Yeah. And so you can start doing the math, right?
I'm just doing the math.
And my scale may be off, but even if it's half that, if it's 100 feet or another 150 feet, that's still 300, 350. So you can still get a sense for the cost of it.
Yeah, that's, let me make sure that 300 feet times $200 a foot. Yeah, that's $60,000 at least. And, oh man.
And there'll be more work, right? The district will need an easement, obviously. There's the surveying, the easement, and the recording fees. I mean, so it starts adding up.
$100,000.
Mhm.
And so the south property has part of their deed says that they have to participate when the north property puts in a line.
Yeah. And just to clarify, and I apologize, I missed this. These properties have 1979. These properties have 1990 agreements.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah. So that's
and-
the temporary offsite agreements on these 1990 properties are pretty rock solid as far as what the conditions are. It's triggered, and staff does not have an issue with enforcing it. It's just the enforcement is fairly costly.
Yeah, well, and what does it benefit the property owners other than sending an 8-inch water line to service one property on the south?
Yep. That's why we brought this to the board, to the committee, because there are cases where having, obviously if the committee and the board feels that it may be a case by case situation. In this case, it may make sense to extend it partially and maybe not extend it at all, or may not make sense to extend it all and give a variance. But with the agreement, the variance has to come at the board level because staff could only do so much because of the way the agreements and our ordinances are written.
What about fire flow issues if you weren't to extend the main line? It seems to me like the county would have a problem with that.
Yeah, so I believe it's right on around the border. So I could be wrong about this, but it might be Vista Fire Protection Districts. And one of the reasons for it is they're going to want a fire hydrant right here at the end,
Right.
and access to it. And I know this is not the satellite, but if you go in the satellite program, this is an access road already to that other property. That's how they get access back to Ladybug Lane. So it's on an existing easement. And the fire hydrant requirement is pretty important to them. And, the homeowners will get a benefit from a fire insurance, maybe. I don't know exactly how that would work, but I know that if that fire hydrant's there co-located on their property corner, that there is a benefit for them, but
Yeah.
it's not going to pay for the water line.
I think proximity to a fire hydrant's important for insurance purposes.
So, but again, it won't offset the cost of the payback is going to be a long time. So
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
James, from the fire perspective, what would be the trigger though? Because I assume the fire department's not aware of these offsite agreements and the requirement for the southerly property to extend the line. So I could see the fire department may want to put a fire hydrant at the northeast corner of the northerly property. They may ultimately want one on the northeast corner of the southerly property, but with the development of that northerly property, I don't think there's any nexus to provide a fire hydrant at the south end of the north property.
you're
Yeah.
right. You're right. But when we do process this pipeline accession will be processed like normally, in this case through the county, and then at that point they circulate through the different fire districts. So it may or may not. It may be nothing, but I'm sure they're going to ask for something. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, and I'm a little concerned if we waive the requirement on the southerly property owner, if that property immediately to the east of these two properties, if they develop, they may be required to extend a line and then look to the district and say, hey, why didn't you make that guy extend the line in 2021 when you had the opportunity? You've now put that burden on me.
Right.
Uh,
So you can see these issues can get complicated fairly quick.
yeah, zoom in there, James, will you please?
Sure, absolutely. Let's see. I just lost the figure for me. Oh, here it is. Okay.
On the Google map.
Oh, okay. Let me find it. That's where I was actually going to the Google map right now. Appreciate your patience. My computer's a little
Yeah,
laggy.
that's all right.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'll share the other screen on the Google map. And okay, do you see the Google map now?
Yeah, I
Yep.
see the Google map. And
Okay.
where the red dot, yeah, that, okay.
Yep. So here's Ladybug Lane, right? This is the parcel that is developing a 3,000 square foot home.
Okay,
This is the parcel that is already developed to the south.
okay.
So the line extension goes from here to roughly there. And that's just a line extension we showed per our standards, basically.
Yeah,
But what's the size of that meter for that southerly property? It looks like it's pretty substantial.
Well, it's probably a 1-inch meter, if I had to guess. I don't know off the top of my head, but a lot of these properties are obviously larger than an acre and on a 1-inch meter.
Yeah, okay.
So you can see I don't really foresee now. I don't know how the future roads will go, and this is obviously being used commercially. If they'll I don't see a road going through here in the county plans. There's nothing that kind of crosses here, and it, the topography is kind of up and down anyway. So there's a good chance that this is a dead end system. That's the good news, at least from looking for different reasons for whether the board would consider a variance or not. So
James, you said an 8-inch line. My God, that just seems like, I appreciate it's a dead end line, so they got to be larger, but man, that seems like way overkill just to service a 1-inch meter at the south, and maybe even the other two, even if they have 1-inch meters. I'm not real excited about having to have them do this.
no, I understand. An 8-inch line is our standard, Director Hernandez. We need that for our equipment, for cleaning, for maintaining, for videoing, for everything else. We don't accept anything less than an 8-inch line. And then also, if there were a fire hydrant at the end, the 8-inch line would be the minimum anyway. If it's Vista Fire Protection, they want 2,500 gallons a minute, but they would have to give a variance because we couldn't get 2,500 gallons a minute because it's an 8-inch line coming down Ladybug, and there's no way this little development or one house could pay for an upgrade of a pipeline. So
Yeah, exactly.
so an 8-inch line is just our minimum, is what it is. We don't accept anything less than an 8-inch, and it's for continuity, it's for cleaning, it's for maintaining.
Well, I personally would not be supportive of having to require them to do this. It seems way overkill for what they're doing. And it just feels like too much to ask. And I know it's a policy, but okay.
You guys see the figure again?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. I didn't know if I had to stop sharing. So, okay, I mean, and that's what this presentation to committee is about, is to kind of get a feel for the discussion of where the committee's at. At the end of the day, any variance or anything that's separate from the agreement would have to go through the committee again, and then probably to the board. So, but it's good to know that we can start. Perhaps I'll talk to Glenn, maybe providing, unless I hear different, providing direction to maybe just do a line extension to here and then cut this semi-innocent or bystander out of the equation.
Yeah, the only problem I have is these recorded agreements.
Absolutely. It's not clean either way.
Hey, James, if we let the northerly property go by extending the line to basically to the west, do we waive any rights to go after the southerly property owner in the future?
Yes and no, because what our standard practice policies are, we have any property that requires an extension to extend the pipeline across its frontage to the edge. That's their responsibility. In this case, there's a participation with this person, but the majority of the cost is going to be borne by this one. So you could get the argument that we didn't enforce our standard practices or policies to do this. So this way, they'd still be responsible for their participation, but we kind of waived our responsibility with the northern property owner to do that. So they could basically say, well, you didn't condition me to do it, so you can't come back to me now.
Well, I guess I'm not clear. For the northerly property owner, wouldn't we just be conditioning them to take it to their northeast corner?
No, that's what I'm saying. Similar to what we had a discussion with the developer on over there off of Mission 316. Our practices and good design guidelines have them extend the pipeline to the next property all the way across their frontage of the easement. So basically, this is basically an ingress, access, and utility easement right here that extends over. There's so many different encumbrances. I couldn't show all of it. It would make the map confusing. But basically, Ladybug Lane extends all the way to here through kind of a paper joint utility easement. So in this case, we're telling that we would tell them to extend the pipeline all the way across their frontage. And that's kind of our standard, that goes along with I forgot the 1980 something letter from the city to kind of enforce those standards to minimize kind of going back into an existing developed property. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
So why wouldn't the southern property be required to extend along their eastern line?
Well, they would if there was another property that we couldn't serve to the south, right? But right now, so if there was a paper road or something that was going to come through here, then they absolutely would have to extend it to here. If they're the dead end, which right now they're the dead end because this road has no extension in the county plans to come through, then then there's no reason to. So we don't make people extend if there's no foreseeable reason,
Yeah.
at least by some land use agency. So
That's a tough one.
yeah, and the decision, it doesn't need to be finalized today. I just wanted the committee to kind of take this for food for thought, because the next one is a little bit more complicated.
You started out easy and got
Right.
more
Kind
complicated.
of ease us into it, huh? Is that it? Okay.
I'm easing you into it, Director Hernandez. So this one will come back. Staff will look at kind of these options, maybe start having conversations with the actual property owner. And then we'll work through the general manager and decide if it's appropriate to bring it back to the board based on, because we haven't responded to the county and we haven't responded to the property owner. So unless I hear different, we're going to respond kind of with our standard approach, which is per the agreement, this is what's going to happen, or this is what we can do, get a response from them, and then we'll react accordingly. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
So we're going to make them unhappy, but we'll do it nicely.
Well, James, when you tell them unhappy, I hope they know that they do have an opportunity to come before the board and.
They always do it. In this case, we're going to tell them that this is what the policy says. This is what it says. We're looking at this, and kind of we'll have a dialogue with them. We're not conditioning them at this point. We're just going to have a dialogue. So, okay, if the committee's ready, I'll move on to the next item.
Yes.
Okay, the next item is Olive Street, and this one's a little bit more complicated because this one too is a multi offsite agreement, but this one a little bit, and I need to refer to my notes because this one kind of has a little bit more going on. I can find my notes. Oh, here it is. Okay. Here are my notes. So in this one, you have basically an existing annexation process. The board's already approved for these two properties. So this one's standard. They're annexing. They're doing a pipeline extension, and these two properties are in the process, 43 and 44. So, however,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so and then however, though, there's several other properties that now they have offsite agreements that are being triggered by these two properties doing this pipeline extension down this private road. So let's start with property 29. Property 29, which is this property here, has a temporary offsite agreement, but no, it's temporary offsite meter, but no agreement is found. We can't find an agreement. Property 22 here has an existing meter from VWD, but it's serving both properties, and it's a VWD meter, and there's greenhouses that straddle both these properties. The best that we could do when we went through the records is this used to be one parcel, and they subdivided or split at one point. It's the same owner, but at one point maybe it wasn't. And the county never let us know. And that's happened a couple times. We've actually we have some precedents we brought to the board where a parcel was split and half the parcel was in VWD and the other half of the parcel was in VID. And we did the annexation process on their behalf to clean it up. So we do have one example since I've been here where that's happened and the district elected to clean up. This property here is on an exchange meter. So we are serving this property on behalf of VID, but if you look by the shading, it's a VID property. So there's three things going on. We have a meter with no temporary offsite agreement. We have a meter with also no temporary offsite agreement that is basically we have no basically rights on exchanging it because there's no agreement. We have on 22, we have a meter that does not have a record of it being on a different parcel, because at one point it was on parcel 29 and now it's on parcel 22. And then we have a existing exchange, and the exchange agreement with VID has no provisions for us to force the hand for them to connect up or change the exchange. So there's a permanence to it. Our newer exchange agreements don't have that language. This one does not. So with that, if you look at the staff report that we gave, we kind of have three different options. Option one is allow the installation of the Pop Lauda water main extension, and I apologize for bouncing back and forth. That's this extension for these two properties, Pop and Lauda. Without relocating existing offsite meters. So we just allow them to go in and we ignore everything on the other side of the page or the other side of the paper street because it's messy. Option two is require all the property owners, which is the 29 and 30, to basically comply with our standards. However, the agreements do not fully support this option, and enforcement may be challenged by the property owners, and rightfully so. And option three, since it may be desirable to achieve compliance with the policy, require the Pop Lauda owners to relocate the existing offsite meters to the new main during their construction, and then reimburse them for it. So basically, just to recap on the figure, the main's getting installed. We clean this all up through option three, and that incremental cost the district would actually pay to reimburse Pop and Lauda, the annexation properties for that. That's option three. Option two is basically try to force the hand of these three properties, which is really two property owners, but three properties to clean it all up. And option one is just to install this, connect these two up, and ignore what's going on this side of the street. So we did not put a staff recommendation on the actual staff report to the committee because right now it's just up for discussion. We have done a smaller version of option three. It was just one property where the property was split. And when they split it, they put half of it in VID, half of it in VWD. And the county recorder's office never circulated to Vallecitos. We think that the property 22 is similar. The property split from the larger parcel at one point, and maybe for sale or for other reasons. And the county never contacted Vallecitos in that case. We're still working with the county to figure that out. But based on the assessor's parcel maps and how they outline the split, that's what it appears to happen. And the years kind of coincide with that because the meter, I believe, was installed prior to the split. And it basically, there's a greenhouse. There's a lot of greenhouses here, so it's supporting a commercial operation.
James, it's a little difficult to tell with the shading, but for option three, what would we be doing with like parcel 30 and 29 in terms of annexation? I can't tell if they're annexed or
so 29 is annexed. This line that goes across it, it's just that's VID's line or something like that. It's just unfortunate. So ignore this green line, but that is where the property line happens to be. But 29 is already in, 22 is already in. 30 is the only one that's out, and obviously 43 and 44, but that's already been taken care of through board action. So the only annexation would be 30. But 30 technically does not need to annex. It could stay on an exchange. So there could be a hybrid with option three. We could clean up 22, 29, and relocate the meter for the exchange from over here off Olive Street to the new pipeline.
But they'd still stay on an exchange agreement, just the meter would be in a different location.
Meter would be in a cleaner location. Yeah. It's not an exchange offsite. Now it's an exchange onsite, which is more desirable.
Is VID interested in participating in the picking up the annexation costs?
Not in this one, because there's no reason for them to. They're on an existing exchange. We don't have the rights to force their hand. They don't have the rights to force our hand either. It's just basically, I think when the agreement, and I don't recall when the agreement was written originally, but it was just written as a very simple exchange agreement. It doesn't really follow our current standards with the exchange agreements that it doesn't have any time or any triggers.
James, on option three, what's the order of magnitude of the district's reimbursement, do you think?
It wouldn't be extremely high. We estimated that it'd be probably under $10,000 total, because you'd have to sever and cut off the existing meters back at the main. So this way we wouldn't have that liability of the laterals that go out there that are pressurized. And then basically with the installation of pipe, we'd be dropping in the new meters. So, while this is open, so it's not like we're digging into this, it would be part of the contract cost.
Right.
So it's a roundabout number working with our operations, about 10,000, and maybe less than that really. What we don't know is the amount of cost that will come back to fully isolate and remove these meters properly. Because we don't want to leave the lateral and just take the meter box out, because that becomes a liability over time, especially with no water running through it, a dead end. It'll corrode, and sooner or later it'll create damage.
So they would dig up the corpse stop and shut it off there.
Yep. Absolutely. So back to the main.
Yeah, so I'm inclined to do the option 3, I guess. It doesn't sound like it's a lot of money. It would clean things up.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Oh, and then this one became easier than the Ladybug one. So
Yeah, well,
it had more going on, but it may be a simpler solution. Okay. Well, then in that case, the staff will move forward with working with the annexation properties to set up a reimbursement agreement with them. And obviously it'll come back to the board for the construction project of this pipeline at the appropriate time when they're ready, with a small reimbursement. And at that time, we'll actually know the magnitude of costs also.
So
Okay.
James, what board approval is required? Obviously, the annexation would require board approval, but the conditions on the annexation. So this would just be a condition of the annexation then?
No, so the annexation was already done in August 19th of 2020.
Okay,
It'd be done through the construction agreement, and we conditioned the construction agreement to add in those new laterals and new meter drops. So there'd be no cap fees in this case. So it's basically that I'd have a discussion with VID about the last property. Forgot the number now, but of 30, but most likely it'll stay on exchange, which is fine.
nothing in option 3 goes against the conditions of the annexation that already occurred?
No, because the conditions of annexation basically was to extend the pipeline and then go through the normal, everything that you have to go through for annexation. But when we go into the construction agreement, it doesn't get into the details of the pipeline. We'll add that in. So it's silent on, any reimbursements and stuff. There's general language on it, but we could definitely add in. And if it's not going to cost them any money to do so, we're hopeful that there won't be any issues. And we could always force their hand through conditioning anyway.
Yeah, what would be the possibility of having VID participate in the clean, the reimbursement costs? I just, as a token gesture, I think.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm more than willing to ask, but I don't think they have really a horse in this race, because basically they're on an existing exchange. It's going to stay on an existing exchange. We could leave it over here on an existing exchange if we wanted to. So
that doesn't make sense, though. I mean, that meter should be relocated to the new pipeline.
Yep. So it's going to be a minor cost. Again, like I said, digging up the main to the corpse stop is going to be as expensive or more, and relocating the meters will be easy. We're not going to purchase new meters. There'll be their existing meters, so that the sequences and the numbers are going to stay the same.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to cooperate with VID to clean up these various situations, and I think it'd be good if they contributed something.
Yeah.
How many situations were the shoes on the other foot where they may be asking us?
Yeah.
Well, majority of the time it's VID annexing to us, so they always have to pay something to annex to us. So there's a good chance that if they have an option not to pay something, that they're going to pick that option.
Yeah.
Plus, their engineer in charge of development service, he's pretty persnickety. So
Yeah.
So, okay, unless there's any other questions, we'll move on to the next item.
Director Hernandez, you okay?
I'm okay.
All
And
right.
James, before you do, maybe just a question for the two committee members. Are these helpful to have these discussions on these types of projects?
Oh, yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
it's definitely helpful.
Yeah,
Yep.
because, obviously, all the easy development's been done, and we deal more and more with these
Yeah.
difficult issues, and there's no right or wrong answer. But as you can well imagine, what we do on this one may set precedents, because somebody's going to find out how we treated these people and wonder why we didn't treat them the same way.
Yes.
So we have to be thoughtful how we move forward. So yeah, thank you for the feedback.
Thank you.
Great, James, under the CIP quarterly update.
Yeah, I'm done, and we're gonna hand this one over to Lito and Ryan, I think.
All right, take us home, guys.
Okay, let me share the screen. Okay, you should see the map on your screen. To get to this location, just to remind everybody, on VWD's website, departments, engineering, brings you to the wheel. If you click on capital facilities, COG, and then active capital improvement projects, this takes you to our interactive map, our quarterly map that we update once a quarter. We just ended the third quarter. So the main project I wanted to hit on before I turn it over to Lito is the San Marcos Interceptor Phase 2. When you click on the thumbnail tab, it brings up the project summary with a link. You click on the link and that takes you to the actual project update page. The Interceptor project is moving right along. It's over 60% complete to date. We are just finishing up resurfacing efforts on San Marcos Boulevard, and TC Construction is in the process of mobilizing over to the creek area adjacent to Via Veracruz and McMar. And that will be the final leg of the project. So out of the road, which is the good news, and on to groundwater dewatering and the last little bit of sewer installation, 42-inch diameter sewer installation. All told, we are sitting at about 65% complete. Change order 1, total just under $260,000, which was about 4.11% of the contract total. And we anticipate a completion date of June 21st. That's the big update on Interceptor. But I wanted to go back to the map and just kind of get Lito involved on summarizing some of the newer projects that we added to the map on this quarter, which directors will remember from some recent board action, some of the fail-safe projects, the emergency bypass project, and moving on to Sage Canyon. So Capital Facilities Engineer Lito Santos, you out there? Lito, you on mute?
Yeah, Lito, we can't hear you at all.
I can just sum it up if he's having technical difficulties. He might be having issues with his microphone. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do his part. He's having some IT issues. I just wanted to recap the emergency bypass rehabilitation project. Getting off the ground now. We have awarded the contract to IEC Corp for $149,000 to perform the design. We're actually meeting out in the field tomorrow with the environmental engineer, and we just completed some survey staking and utility locating of our lines. So we're going to go out there and take a little field trip in the morning. Additionally, we have the Meadowlark fail-safe rehabilitation project through the Buena Reach. This is the line that Buena has a 50% stake in, so we're working along with their engineering department and NV5, who is the engineer of record on this project. We have the alignment study complete, and we're moving right into 90% design, which we expect to receive delivery on in May. And then lastly, Sage Canyon Tank refurbishment is the next tank project that we have coming down the pipeline. We just finished up the acceptance of North Twin Oaks tank #1 and Schoolhouse tank from before that. This will be the next design and construction. We should be ready for bid right around the beginning of fiscal year 21-22. And Harper Engineering Associates is on board for that design and construction phase. That's really everything I wanted to hit on for the capital update, third quarter update. We have other projects on here which directors are free to look at their own free will. But any questions you may have on anything, feel free to ask.
Thanks, Ryan. Director Hernandez, any questions?
No?
All right, I think we're good. I want to thank staff for all the very informative items. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very, very clearly presented. Thank you.
Yeah, I should have mentioned at the beginning, but thanks again to the committee for accommodating the change in dates. I know we were supposed to have met last week, but there's a conflict and you guys were gracious enough to accommodate us to move by a week. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all we have. We good?
Is that all?
That's it. We'll come back with more difficult land development projects for you next time, though.
Yeah, please. Those weren't challenging enough.
That's right.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
keep raising the bar.
Okay. All right, then. I guess we're done.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.